In the World of Tanks 2.0 update, my favourite tier 10 tank, the Batchat 25T, received a successor in the form of the ASXX 40T. But there is just one major problem. The community reception of this tank is mixed at best, with many players voicing their concerns that the tier 11 is a disappointment, or even considerably a downgrade. Personally, I've been really loving this tank, despite some of its weaknesses, and wanted to share information and advice regarding how this tank actually works, so that you can learn to enjoy it the same way I do, or maybe even push the tank further past its limits to achieve higher scores. Furthermore, I'll be comparing the strengths of both the tier 10 and tier 11 and explaining why comparing these tanks directly isn't fair and creates expectations that cannot be fulfilled. A problem to consider against the tier 10 Batchat is actually its capability of dealing early damage. The Batchat is limited since it has to reload its entire magazine, which takes, with my setup, 37.7 seconds, meaning on some maps you miss out on this chance. But, as we can see, by coming to this early crossing on Tundra, I can choose to load only 2 or 3 bullets and punish my enemies for crossing. Usually in an autoloader, waiting near a battle while reloading means we aren't able to contribute at all. However, we're able to interrupt our reload at just 1 shell and chip away at our enemies for being aggressive, and even rewarded with a bit of additional fire damage. Furthermore, we can continue to help out our team proactively, deciding that 3 shells should be enough damage for our team to destroy this Foch. Unfortunately in this game, our team is still being destroyed on both flanks, so I'm feeling anxious about suddenly being overrun. We need to make something happen as time is running out. Thankfully, we are relieved of some pressure by our tank destroyers completely annihilating this poor leopard, so I make my first HP trade against the KR-1. A tricky shot to hit, but the gun is reliable enough to make these. We take a decent amount of his HP and fall back to begin reloading. If you were in this scenario, what would you be looking to do? In this moment, I go for something risky as our odds are getting slimmer by the second. I want to move through the map and begin a flank or try to create a crossfire on the advancing heavy tanks. Upon discovering the location of the Hirsch and Borkenkäfer, I decide that there are just too many tanks on this side, and I'll wrap around again to fight the TVP and KR-1. I'm confident engaging the TVP as his magazine only allows him to put out 1200 damage. Clearly, this plan didn't work out, and you can probably see my mistake. I was spotted for most of my journey, so all chance for my ambush of the enemy was not possible. They were able to reposition and punish my gamble. In hindsight, I think I should have fought these guys head on, with the help of my Patton and Hirschkäfer ally, to make use of this hill position I'd been fighting for since the start of the game, creating a powerful crossfire that way against the tanks pushing our base. Losing my tank leads to the inevitable loss of our team in this game, but I still got a decent result personally, although I could have done much better. Next, I want to show you the brawling power of the ASXX. Have you ever tried to fight against heavies in your autoloaders and found that their single fire guns lead to engagements where you can't put out multiple shots? Well, thanks again to that reload ability, we can see just how comfortable the ASXX is. We can give an ambush of 2 shots here and immediately reload. Noticing that our team is outnumbering this flank, we can push forwards and continue farming damage. We're able to get all the benefits of a traditional autoloader without having to lose out on damage in faster tempo games. With the Taschenratte firing, we have a perfect chance to stop reloading and get some more damage. This is tricky to do though, as the turret has to turn forwards to reload and then turn where you are aiming when you want to fire. It's a bit clunky, so make sure to avoid what I'm about to do next.
Nice.
Yet again, the enemy is making a big push on our base, so we need to return quickly to defend. thanks to our incredible top speed of 70 km an hour, which is actually a bit faster than the tier 10 counterpart. We can take this position to punish the invaders. Even at this range, our accuracy and high 335 heat penetration puts in work. I find a lot of freedom in the ASXX, and I'm always looking to make more aggressive plays than in other autoloaders. I noticed that this BZ is putting a lot of pressure on our team, and I want to try and remove him so we can recapture our base, but I end up getting myself killed. If you want to learn from my mistake, remember to keep in mind the unspotted enemies, and assume that they are in good positions to cover their teammates. The hacker and shackle were unaccounted for by me, which is why this play didn't work. It's time to talk about the elephant in the room. Quite literally elephant, as we must discuss the massive size and lower camo value of the ASXX. If you're used to playing the Batchat, you'll know all too well the pain of getting spotted when you really aren't expecting it while playing the ASXX. My advice is that you really have to be mindful of how you position and cross dangerous areas. A traditional second equipment build for spotting does still work, but keep your expectations lower than if you were commanding the Batchat. And honestly, I think this is one of the things I like about this tier 11. It's the same playstyle as the tier 10, but different in its own way. Furthermore, I must pose the question to you. Do you really think the ASXX would be fair, with this much firepower and speed, to also be good in terms of its spotting and camo capabilities? Since our initial position didn't work out, I decided to retreat as we are outnumbered on this flank. Let me show you a great position that you should try out in pretty much every tank. The location to be is right here, and this spot gives information to your team, as well as allowing you to farm damage on advancing tanks. Not only this, but you're actually quite hard to see visibly and a small target due to the train cart. Although be careful, even though we have enough gun depression, the tallness of the ASXX is making it a bit awkward to play here. For the rest of this game, I continued to fall back as the enemy advanced, and I figured out that the enemy ASXX was probably most definitely using a commander's vision system, as he was able to spot me through bushes. But now, we come to the end game scenario, as our team has pushed through to the enemy base. This is the dream endgame situation for dangerous autoloaders with high damage magazines. Notice that I have saved a lot of my HP, which is an important skill in World of Tanks, but even more rewarding with the Batchat and AS. I'm able to confidently push in, finding mostly isolated targets, and trade my hit points, cashing them in for big damage as my enemies are helpless to defend or escape. In this battle, I am trying to achieve my second Mark of Excellence on the ASXX. The requirement is a combined 5000 damage and spotting in this match. Additionally, I want to provide some tips related to the XX to help you learn and attain your own goals if you decide to unlock or already own this tank. The ASXX is not as sneaky as the Batchat, but it is still sneaky enough to stalk the shackle through this bush line, and we're able to fire unspotted by using the double bushes here. Try to plan out your engagements. For example, I know this shackle is mostly alone, so as soon as he retreats, I can just start reloading. When you have all the upgrades, the transition to the reloading state, as well as cancelling back into the firing state, is very swift. Just obviously don't begin to reload if you are actively fighting multiple tanks. This ability of the ASXX makes it constantly threatening. It's difficult for enemies to track how many shells you have loaded, which causes unforced mistakes on their end. You can bluff that you have enough shells to destroy them, or bait them in by firing once and then faking a reload. For such a simple mechanic, there is a lot of depth and creativity that is possible. One thing I haven't seen mentioned is how well this tank makes use of the Intuition perk. All autoloaders can make use of this perk to switch from one shell type to another, but they need to have a fully loaded mag to make this switch. With the 40T, you can fire 1 or 2 APCR shells and then decide you need to load heat for an incoming heavy tank. Simply start the reloading process, and when you are full of APCR, press your ammo key twice and you'll intuition switch to a full heat mag. As you can see, this match is quickly turning dire. We did manage to clear the south, but the heavy flank was lost pretty one-sidedly. Tensions were high as I knew I had some blind damage, but only 2,500 combined visible. In high pressure moments, it's important to stay focused and not have an emotional response. The outcome looks bleak, but you can still maximize experience and damage. Don't make the mistake my team is making. They are continuing to push into the enemy side and playing aggressively. Right now, we should be taking strong positions and waiting for the enemy to make mistakes. Remaining alive until the end of the battle allows you to make the most of a bad game or potentially mount a comeback. Looking at this game in the replay, I think I should have maybe committed to fighting the Taschenratte, continuing to kite away from the bulk of the enemy forces, but it's hard to say this would have worked out much better. So, I achieved my second mark of excellence in this tank, and I enjoy playing the ASXX, so maybe one day I will push for the third mark. I hope that you are able to find a new love for this tank by adjusting your expectations and appreciating the differences between the Batchat and the AS. I am grateful for the approach Wargaming has taken with these new tier 11 tanks, as I don't feel any of them are overpowered and make the tier 10 counterparts completely obsolete. In the future we may see buffs and changes made, but for me personally, the ASXX 40T is perfect just the way it is. Thank you so much for watching. As always, a massive shout out to all my current supporters. If you like this style of video, I have a similar one on screen now, talking about the Dravits. Although that isn't finished yet, so until then, check out me playing the Progetto 46.